Hello, my cross-stitch and needleworker friends. I am so happy you came back to join me this week. We are going to talk all about really fun punch needle embroidery accessories, specifically how to make these cow print earrings with custom tassels and charms. And I don't just mean the charms that are on the piece. So we're going to get started. I am covered in pug hair. I am wearing the velour black jogging pants, and I am sitting on my couch on a cold winter day here in Maryland. We had tons of snow. I am starting out this project by using an all black fine tip Sharpie marker pen to trace my pattern onto the weaver's cloth. And I'm doing it directly on the weaver's cloth while it is in the hoop. Now, typically you're not going to want to put a pattern on when your fabric is in the hoop because it's already stretched. So do as I say, not as I do. Okay, now we're going to thread the punch needle. I have the needle setting on number 1. I have the smallest needle attached to the punch needle, and then this is going to be a highly technical term. The thingamabob that I'm using, it's a long piece of metal, and it's looped so that it catches your thread or whatever you are using to punch with. And so what you're going to do is you're going to thread your thread through that little metal piece, and then it's going to pull up through the punch needle. So give yourself a long tail so it doesn't slip through, and then you have to re-thread it again. Then you're going to pull it through. Now, you're not ready to punch yet. Next step is you're going to have to thread through the eye of the punch. There is actually a hole up at the top of that needle, and it's kind of difficult to see here on my video. It's so small I couldn't zoom in on it. So you're going to thread through that metal piece, pull that thread that you've already pulled through up the shaft of the punch needle, and you're going to pull that through the hole now. And that way you can successfully start your punch needle embroidery adventure. I am using just a single strand of 12 weight cotton thread. Now, I learned how to do punch needle thanks to Kathy at Primitive Homespun and Needle in Frederick, Maryland. She taught me using Valdani threads, which gorgeous, and they are 3 strands and thicker than a 12 weight cotton. And I would say they are the creme de la creme of punching and are beautiful colors with beautiful variegation. I am using a variegated brown right now. It is called milk chocolate. And I'm going to start by punching all around the background. And typically you would start with the smallest components first and then work into your large components. But I have 2 colors, and this is a fairly small piece, so I am not adhering to that rule completely. What I mean by that is, say you had a bouquet of flowers and you want to do the design. You would want to start with that center middle part of the flower, like the smallest part, or the smallest thinnest stem, before you would do the large urn or vase that the flowers were in. So say you had that design. I've got a little Luna Mood pug on my lap, so if you hear some snorting, that's what it is, I assure you. So here I am, and I am punching. I have sped up my video 4 times, so I'm not really that lightning speed with the needle. It's just technology playing tricks. I have my thread in a traditional brown needle bowl, yarn bowl that knitters and crocheters use. I had a small pottery bowl, and it was actually called a Valdani bowl by Primitive Homespun and Needle that I used. You put your Valdani ball in, and then you just punch away, and you don't have to worry about your ball escaping on you off your side table or craft table. I unfortunately had mine broken by little pugs thinking there was food in the bowl. No, just just threadable. It fell down and broke. So I am just using a traditional yarn bowl. It helps to keep my spool wrangled in, and I'm able to punch a lot faster. Now, you can always stop and start your punching and just leave yourself enough thread, like 2 inches at the top of your needle, so that you don't get your color unthreaded inadvertently. So you just want to do that. So I've moved over to that second piece, and I'm going to do all the brown, and then I'll go back in and do all the white. I saw the most amazing thing on social media. Vonna, the Twisted Stitcher, showed her technique of punch needle using multiple punch needle tools. So cool. So she had them all pre-loaded. So each of her corresponding colors were all loaded onto each corresponding ultra punch. So she didn't have to stop and rethread, and it just, what a great idea and tip and trick. So I'm gonna go ahead and save up my pennies so I can buy a couple more of these ultra punches so I can have all my colors loaded up, ready to go. And what can I say? I want to be like Vonna and have all the finishes. So here I am punching with just the traditional white 12 weight cotton. It is not variegated. It is the bright white. I think it's 1001, and it's super fun. I kept it on the setting number 1, and so all of my punch loops are all going to be the same height. This punch goes up, from setting number 1 all the way up to setting number 12. I just watched Julie of the Old Tattered Flag. She did a Facebook Live video where she was punching flowers on linen, and she had her set to number 12. Now that's going to give you large loops the higher the number that you set it on, because the length of your thread will be coming out longer depending on how long if you 1 to 12. So you're going to eat up a lot of thread really fast if you have it on the number 12. However, it's going to look amazing. So here I'm just keeping my loops really small on the number 1 setting. I don't need a huge amount of dimension on this because my earrings are already going to be pretty large and in charge as dangle hoop hippie handicrafts go. Bad movie quote from Jane Austen book club, do you wear handmade earrings? No, I'm not into hippie handicrafts. Well, I'm not a hippie, but I love handcrafts, and so does little Loki Pug. He's got to be in the middle of everything. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up the white, and you want to keep your thread loose. You don't want to have that tension pulling back, like short amount of thread, because that will pull your loops out of your weaver's cloth. Now, you can do punch needle on linen, on monk's cloth, on weaver's cloth. I know that several designers just use the typical weaver's cloth and use that as their recommended. When you buy a punch needle pattern, sometimes it will come with the weaver's cloth included. Sometimes it will come with the design already on the fabric, meaning it was either Sharpie marker traced on or screen printed on, or you might just get a blank piece of fabric and you will have to trace your pattern on to your weaver's cloth. Now you can also scale up or scale down a design. If you've purchased a pattern and you don't like how large it is or how small it is, you can always adjust the scale of the piece, and it'll look beautiful no matter what, and I'm sure the artist that you've purchased the pattern from will just love that you wanted to do their, punch their design. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut out these pieces off the weaver's cloth. I've taken it out of the Morgan no slip hoop. I am not going to be using the rainbow or the heart in this tutorial, but I'm cutting them out anyway. You want to leave like 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch around the perimeter of your piece. some designs call for you directly cutting right up to the stitching. Because I'm using 2 circles, I don't need it, I need to leave some border to turn everything over. So I'm cutting around, and what you don't see is I have already cut out using craft scissors 4 of the circles for the front and back of each earring, and I've used the acid-free comic book backer board where it's white on one side and like a brown on the other side. I've cut out all 4 of those templates already, not with the good scissors, and I am going to be using that to attach to the back of the piece, and I will be gluing it down. It is not archival safe, but these earrings are not meant to be heirloom treasures. They are fun, cute earrings that I wear, and hopefully they'll stick around. I can always, if I don't want them as earrings anymore, I can make them into scissor fobs. I can make it into ornaments. I could add them as charms onto a large necklace. You name it. So here I've got this pink fabric, which we'll talk about a little later for the backing. And I could not find my glue container for my craft glue, so I had to just grab the big bottle. And I'm just using a paintbrush to paint the Aleene's craft glue right onto the back of the punch needle. I'm gluing it for 2 reasons. Number 1, to make sure that my stitching that is secure from the back. And number 2, to attach it to the backer board here. So I've put glue all on the stitching, the back of that piece, and now I'm putting around the edges that I have cut, and I am gluing those all the way down. From the side, you still see a peekaboo of the weaver's cloth, and that's fine. I'm going to be covering it up in a little bit, and you will see that. So I've glued both the tops. As you can see, the pugs are getting tired. They haven't had their 15th nap of the day. Luna Moon and Loki Apple have not been enjoying the snow, I will say that much. Oh, it has been a trip. The children, I will say, love the snow, so there's a win there. So again, you're going to fold over those little edges and glue them down. I'm working really hard to not get glue on the front of my punch needle of the loops of the stitching. I'm working really, really hard. However, my fingers have glue all over them. Now you can create punch needle in any shape and in any size. The only thing, the deterrent, is maybe the size of your hoop and the amount of supplies that you would need to do, depending on what size of project or scale you would like to do. You can make things a 3-dimensional project. You can make other accessories for a needlework. You can make toys. There are a lot of different punch needles out on the market as well. I just read the new book by the creator of the Oxford punch needle. She is up in New England, and she uses an Oxford punch, which is different than the Ultra punch, and for a lot of large scale projects, actual rugs, pillows, stuffed animals, backpacks, that type of thing. The Ultra punch is for a lot of smaller, more intricate work. However, you could really use it for anything. So now I've got 2 little scrap pieces of the Michael Miller shades of the rainbow shades fabric line they came out. I think there was 50 different colors. So I am just going around the circle and pulling through. This will create the back of the ornament. So I'm just securing it, a couple knots, and I will go back and cut some of the extra bulky fabric out so I don't have that bulk. So I'm going to do both sides. These are going to be the back of the earrings. You could always use a really fun piece of scrapbook paper and not use fabric. There's so many other things that you can do. I wanted to do fabric. Oh, now we're going to make some tassels. So this is the 2-width finger tassel. What that means is that I'm using my 2 fingers and I am wrapping the thread around 20 revolutions, so 20 times around my fingers to make this tassel. So then I pull it off my finger and I am going up to the one side of the loops, and I've threaded my needle and I'm stitching this all together, going through the loop, then winding the thread around a couple times and then going back and forth and sewing it in, trying to get that tassel nice and secure. You can make tassels any size and any thickness. I thought the sweet spot for these earrings was 2 finger length and 20 revolutions. I use just a 12 weight pink cotton thread again for the tassels. You can make tassels out of anything: scrap fabric, leather, lengths of beads, metal, chains, whatever. You have it. But I wanted to keep consistent with the 12 weight cotton. Now I had purchased some cow charms because you can never have enough charms. And I am going to attach the tassel. I'm going to sew the top of that tassel directly on to the little cow charm. I am just using a DMC size 26 needle for all of this. You can use a size 24. It's a tapestry needle, not a chenille needle, nothing big and fancy, just my typical cross stitch needle to affix the tassel onto the charm. I also pulled out my beading tools, and I have some of the jewelry findings, the small loops, and the earring components for this. So here you see me kind of positioning the charm and sewing that tassel directly onto the charm. This was so fun. Now I want to make more things with tassels. I think I'm also going to figure out how to incorporate some tassels into a cross stitch finish. I was going through some of the back issues of Cross Stitcher magazine and saw a really lovely finish of a cross stitch parrot, and they did kind of a macrame tassel finish on the bottom of it and utilized it as a wall hanging, and I thought that was really cool. I'm already working on a project for this year with a finish as a wall hanging, so why not add some tassels, right? Shh, don't tell anyone. All right, so I've attached, it looks like the second charm here, stitching it on through. Oh, these earrings are going to be so much fun. Now, I glued the top piece and the bottom pieces. They're drying. And then I am going to go ahead and attach those 2 pieces together. Now, if I had more time, I would have sewn these pieces together and maybe added a bead trim to them. However, I figured glue would be just fine, and I always have an occasion for using some fancy trims, some rickrack. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gluing these pieces, the top and bottom pieces together. I'm going to use the Vana Twisted Stitcher method of putting them under a thick, heavy book, sandwiching them down to get them to affix and stay flat. I'm handing the first one over to my husband. He's putting it under a large, heavy book. It's kind of funny. I have a collection of dictionaries. You know, the Scrabble dictionary, the old vintage dictionary, the new Merriam-Webster dictionary, all the dictionaries. Well, one of my dictionaries literally weighs like 5.5 pounds, and that is my favorite book to use for finishing if I have to glue and put it underneath. It's my large vintage dictionary. All right, now here I'm doing just the jewelry, putting the loops on the jewelry findings. Again, you don't have to make jewelry. You can do a scissor fob and just add a ribbon. I mean, there's so many different things you can do. Hopefully, I am just inspiring you to think about your needlework in a different, fun, and creative way. I know that Cheryl of The Tiny Modernist, she had a pattern come out, and it was little earrings on 14 count Aida, the plastic Aida. Now, they don't call it plastic canvas, it's called plastic Aida. So there's so many things that you can stitch and create. I would love to see someone do like a miniature quilt block earring, or I don't know. Oh, there's so many really cool things you can do. So right now I am just gluing that little miniature rickrack trim around. I could have, again, stitched it down, but I didn't. So here is my finished pair of earrings with the rickrack, and then I used and just stitched the loops down there to attach that finding, the earring finding on the top and the bottom. I stitched it directly onto the piece. The rickrack ribbon is not the exact color I wanted, but it was what I had available in my stash, and it was the right size. Here I'm going through at the very end, and I'm just trimming off any of those kind of wandering large loops. Those loops can happen sometimes when you have punched in an area and then you go back again and you accidentally punch through that same exact spot. It can push out that first stitch, that first loop. So you can go back through and just trim right down to where you need it to be and get all of the strays taken care of so you don't see any wandering large loops, outlier loops. So here we go, those fun finished earrings, yay! If you've stuck with me this long, my kids made a snowman. It was very, very snowy here in Maryland, but we are eagerly awaiting the warmer weather. And Luna Moon Pug says, yay, and thank you so much. The pugs had fun sitting on my lap as I created this week. I want you all to know how much I appreciate you. You are awesome. I hope I've inspired you in some small way to create something. If you create something, tag me on social media, email me, let me know whether it's a punch needle brooch, earrings, if you've done something fun with your charms and tassels and beads, you know, beads, bows, and buttons. I would love to see that, because why not have fun with your embellishments? Please remember that you matter, your stitching matters, and I will talk to you soon. Happy stitching and much love.